Well, gentlemen, now that the irregular militia force seems to be getting a rework in the next update, I'd like to look back at a time before we had like 4 different unconventional factions and only 2 existed, one of which no other game had paralleled. To answer the question absolutely nobody asked, what should the IMF be, and what is its role in Squad? Our journey starts all the way back in a mod, Project Reality, in which the militia faction was created, and it operated much like a Russian proxy army, as it was intended to be seen as a rebellious fighting force in conflict to preserve Russian interests in Eastern Europe, or an insurgency force against the Federation's regime. The clay from which this militia was modeled after was clearly the one of the Chechens, with their addition to Squad being no different at the faction's release, much more like a Russian-style insurgency force, instead of the more standard militia we know today. Hell, they were even equipped with fucking IEDs at the beginning!
You swear to God! Put that on Mother, say, put that on Allah! Say wallahi, bro! Say wallahi!
See you later, idiot, Luis.
However, after 8 years from its initial release, it had become monotonous and stale, almost like a relic of the past, as the game left its beta state to enter the market as a finished product. I got the glitch where your head detaches from your body. So, OWI decided it was time for a reshuffle. And in 2023, the faction was completely revamped and reimagined, this time being based off of the Serbian militia active in Bosnia during the Yugoslav wars of the 90s, and sprinkled with a bit of Russian paramilitary force, like the one active since the early 2010s in eastern Ukraine. It was a surprise to be sure, but a very, very welcome one, as it transformed the militia into the most unique faction lore and gameplay-wise, with unique roles such as the ambusher kit with RKG grenades.
Nice hit, nice hit.
Nice hit, bro.
Boom! Destroy
You
it!
know, observe.
And the Grad artillery vehicle, about which I already talked about in this video. So, now that the militia is basically its own unique thing, loved by so many for its distinctive origin and weapon availability, OWI decided it was time to divert the resources towards other important and urgent issues, like weapon skins or raids. But still, it could be worse. They could release an update in which they both removed all of the militia's Western weapons, de facto turning them back into a generic Russian proxy, but keeping the announcer and voices in Serbo-Croatian for no fucking reason whatsoever. For crying out loud. They did, however, add the VSS Venturas, ASVL, T80, for which I have to give them credit for, but the update they dumped it in was the one that basically purged 50% of the game's player base. Which all brings us to right now, with the devs asking us, the remaining player base, to decide this faction's future through none other than a fucking flag vote, with mainly 2 paths ahead. Will it become again a Balkan faction with ties to both Russia and the West, grounded on the Serbian militias of active in the 90s, or will it remain a Russian proxy more similar to a PMC than an insurgent verse? Personally, I really like both the previous versions' flag and this one, while this last one seems to belong to the Heineken Islamic Socialist Republic, which is kinda funny. And so, to finally answer the question nobody asked at the beginning, the militia is what you want it to be. And its role in Squad is obviously to be fun to play with, but remain distinctive enough to not just become a clone of the Russian or Ukrainian armed forces, as it's already hard to tell them apart as they are right now.
Shut up!